different. We got some questions. I love to see it. So I want to get us started. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And then I'm looking around for someone who is looking to give us an open with a prayer today. Who would like to open us up with a prayer? Marsha volunteered, is what I have heard. Yes, please.
Most gracious and eternal Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for allowing us to be here in this space. We thank you for community gathering. We thank you for unity, and we thank you for the provisions that you provided for us. Now, let us, for the business at hand, allow us to navigate through this meeting, allow us to come together and synergize in order to lift up the community through literacy, through collaborative efforts, both at home and in our school system, so that we can continue to march forward. We ask for your blessings in this session and ask for your blessings when we depart and go to our next destination. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much. My name is Mia Bowers. I am the executive. No, that's the different hat. Different hat. Sorry. I am the president of the local branch in NAACP. I'm so bad at introducing myself. So I'm Mia, and I would like to introduce or welcome all of our new guests. If you haven't joined us before, can you give a space? Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a packed agenda. We have some special guests invited by our education committee, led by the wonderful, fabulous Dr. Walthour. We have a number of community partners here this evening as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get to what you came here for, right? You guys want to hear from Dr. Smith and his crew. And so we're going to get that started pretty much right away. After we are finished with our panel and our Q&A, we're going to come back and we're going to introduce our community partners and give them an opportunity to share with you the wonderful things that they have going on in the community and ways to join them and to be involved as well. Did you have a question about that? Not you, David. You look like you were about to say something. No? Okay, all right. I want to make sure I'm not skipping over anybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suspend business as usual. No, I'm not going to. Somebody got something to say?
I was going to say somebody needs to do that for you.
Okay, I need a motion to suspend. I'm going to suspend.
Motion.
Business as usual. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Who was the mover? We need it for the record now. Troy moved, thank you, and Diana seconded. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Dr. Walthour, who is going to give you more information about tonight and introduce our guest panelists. Dr. Walthour. I do. She was going through it.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Oh, thank you. As Mia said, I'm Janice Walthour, and I chair the Education Committee. And I would like the Education Committee members to please stand. They are just wonderful, 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 wonderful. We have some Speaking Out for Success members, Dante. Yes, so well, thank you all for being here. And of course, Mia's already told you about our featured speaker tonight, and we have been meeting quarterly with the superintendent and his staff. So this time, what we decided to do was to make this a quarterly meeting with the whole group, with the public. We had a planning session. This is one of the quarterly meetings, and we will follow up for this particular session in September. But we will have a follow-up for those of you that are interested. And we have a sign-in, and that's going to be on May 12th at the Church of the Ascension. So there's information on that poster. So you should have information about that. So we'll see what's being said tonight. We've asked him to talk about reading achievement in St. Mary's County Public Schools, where we are, where we need to go, look at the state data, of course. And we also need some information, I guess, from him, and he brought along some of the staff members, Ms. Faulkner and Ms. Thorstenson. She's a principal at Carver Elementary. My school. I know you in the open up. I'm gonna do that. She didn't say it like that. And of course, Lisa Wagner, who is I guess, director of curriculum.
Chief academic officer.
I can't.
For at least another month, 2 months.
2 months, chief academic officer. And I went over there and said, I see you doing the happy dance. Oh, no, I'm not. She's retiring and well-deserved. Okay, just a little bit about what we've done when we meet with when we have these quarterly meetings, and I'm going to kind of rush through this because we have, I guess, talked so much with the superintendent and the committee about that. We've looked at disaggregated data. We've addressed the achievement gap of African American students and their counterparts. We have been discussing, issues, solutions to student arrest and student climate. We have had advocacy. We have been advocating for minority staff because there's still not enough diversity in St. Mary's County Public Schools. We have looked at the under enrollment of African American students in the Forest Center, especially in areas that are underrepresented. We have advocated for mandated financial literacy classes. They do have them at the school system. I think it's an elective, but in today's world, we keep talking about it. We need some financial literacy going on, especially when eggs cost, $100 a dozen. We also have advocated for affordable driver's education. These kids don't start driving until they're 25 and 30 years old. And in a rural area, you have to be able to drive, or else mom and dad take you everywhere you need to go. How many are in that situation? A big brother or big sister. We have talked about conflict resolution and mediation as Mia's field, especially pre-K through 12. Some sort of connected curriculum. They have wonderful programs that they do. We have advocated for civics education to meet societal needs. And one thing we advocated for was the removal of Confederate flags from school campuses. And lo and behold, it's been a few years now since there are no Confederate flags flying in St. Mary's County Public Schools. So Dr. Smith, as I introduced him, he has been with St. Mary's County Public Schools. He was an English teacher. So when I write memos to him, I'm glad they're emails because emails. He holds a bachelor's degree in English education from the State University of New York in Buffalo, and a master's from Towson, and his doctorate is from the University of Maryland. He has been a principal, assistant principal, and a principal director of secondary schools, and executive director as well. He was named the acting superintendent of instruction back in 2013, and he has made his way all the way to the top of schools. And his contract was renewed in 2019 and again in 2023. So he's been here and been vigilant and has worked. And today I think he's been 50,000 places. I'm going to turn it over to him because this is the 50,001, I think. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
It's not how you start your day, it's how you end your day. Lovely to be ending my day here. So I don't, what I want to do is, you go ahead. It's not my presentation. So, and thank you very much, Dr. Wapau and Mia and past presidents as well for having the opportunity to come out and spend some time with you and talk a little bit about what's going on in St. Mary's County Public Schools. And we've done this a whole host of ways. I've come with PowerPoint slide decks with 35 different slides and a whole bunch of graphics and a whole bunch of thising and thatting. We've gone through and we've done handouts, we've done all of this stuff. And what I found is that a lot of times what's most valuable is for you'd ask questions and let's start a conversation first. Now, I will tell you that when we talked about this meeting, it was to provide an update, have a conversation about what St. Mary's County Public School is doing with regard to reading instruction from pre-K all the way up to the end, to really talk about what's going on in school. Because I think that oftentimes we read a paper and we get a number and we say that number is so low, nobody's doing any work, everything's wrong, we have to fix it, throw it out, fire everybody, start from scratch, burn it down. Okay, great. We've all said things like that, but understand that that is just a point in time. That is one assessment. The state of Maryland has revised that assessment every single year for the last decade. They have modified the platform. They have altered the length. They have moved through different items. They have rescaled the scores. They have done all kinds of things with the actual assessment itself. And what has come to light with the newest state superintendent (10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Paper and pencil. The way our mind interacts with something on a printed page, the way we hold a pencil, the way we work through math. I can't do math on a computer. I can't really even read well and deeply on a computer. And yet that's the way all the assessments have been done. So we are in a very interesting time. The state of Maryland they're sunsetting the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment System, thank goodness. Next year, it right now is out for bid. They're bringing in vendors, they're talking about different ways. So we will have a brand new Maryland Comprehensive Assessment System in 2020. I think they're going to field test it in 26, and it'll be in 27. Everybody has said you have to learn how to read, and after third grade, you got to read to learn. You read to learn, then you learn to read. Learn to read, then you read to learn, right? So we have subject matter experts here this evening. Not only the people who are coordinating and putting together very detailed comprehensive plans and aligning resources and putting that all together, Chief Academic Officer Lisa Bachner, but we also have two absolute practitioners for the schools directly in this community. Principal Scow from Lexington Park Elementary School and Principal Forsythe from George Washington Carlos. And these are the people who every single day are working with the children attending those schools, working with the teachers and all the wraparound support services that those sites have, working with parents to try to move everybody forward. And the one thing that we all know is that it is important that the entire community understands and values the work that's going on in the schools, and that we have committed partners at home. Oftentimes, when we see struggling readers, we can see that there's also probably struggling readers at home. This isn't something that's being reinforced. The amount of literature that you're exposed to, the reading, the vocabulary, is a part of becoming a competent reader. That being said, there's a lot of things to share about the work that's gone, and most importantly, within the science of reading itself, and aligning high-quality instructional materials to having consistent intervention to make sure that we are doing the intervention with fidelity, and that's what these people will be talking to you about. So the purpose of me being here was to gather groups to come in and talk about what's going on with you relative to me. That being said, you are a large group and you might have questions and other things that you want to talk about. So before I step back and I turn it over to Ms. Faulkner, Principal Scow, to talk specifically about the work relative to reading and the topics that anybody here would like to ask me. Because I don't want to leave this evening and have an unanswered question. So yes.
Well, it's a question in regards to what you were just discussing.
Perfect.
All right. So you talked about how the tests in the past, you just find out the vendors, they rolled them in.
Yeah.
They weren't suitable, basically. That's my takeaway.
They are not an appropriate assessment of what's
Okay.
going on in a child.
So what are you doing now to ensure you're going to have the appropriate assessment?
So I can't control what the state.
Well, what's the state doing?
So there are things beyond our ability to interact, like at the state level. We certainly, chief academic officers meet monthly. They give information and input all the way back through as they go through items. We draw teachers from each one of the counties. We are trying to provide input, but at the end of it, that's the State Department. That is ultimately going to be the Maryland State Department of Education. That's going to be the state board. That's going to be the state superintendent that determines what the assessments will look like and how they'll be delivered to kids. What we control down here is how we actually provide instruction and how we assess student learning as they go through formative assessments as we go through, and then how we go back and re-instruct and catch kids up. And ultimately, we know that they'll be able to perform well on an assessment at the state level. But in the meantime, what they're here to do is to talk about what happens every single day in the classroom. Because that's where we're seeing our children make great strides. We're using all kinds of formative data. We can talk about foundations, and we can talk about all of those things. And that's why they're here tonight, to really talk about what's going on in the individual schools.
So where does Maryland stand in regards, if we take Maryland and say Maryland versus Texas versus California versus Maine? I mean, how is Maryland falling out in these assessments? How are the children doing?
Well, so this is all right, well, we could be here for a long time, and that might be really good. So under President Obama, so first we had George Bush and we had No Child Left Behind. Then we had President Obama with Race to the Top. And what President Obama realized was all of these comparatives, state to state to state to state to state, everybody had a different assessment. And everybody's assessment was administered in a different way, asked in a different way. And some states had much more straightforward, simple assessments, and their kids scored really well, and everybody felt great about the way they did things. So what they said was, stop, we're all going to have the same assessment. So back in 2008 or 9, they had the Park assessment. So they put together a whole consortium, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and they put together a curriculum, and everybody was going to use all the same assessments. And half of the nation said, great, we're going to be Park. And then half the nation said, no, we don't like Park. We're going to be, what was the other one? Smarter Balance. There you go, Smarter Balance. English teacher back there. Yeah, so it was Smarter Balance. And so we had two competing ways in which we were going to assess kids learning. We're like, okay, great, well, we'll do that. And what happened was each year, states realized that the assessments were very which they sunset in like 2015, 16, I think. And then that's when they came up with the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. So then they went out to a vendor and they said, it's going to be Park-like. We're going to put together an assessment. They gathered the same people. And for the next 3 years, they field tested it, and we did terrible because the assessment really wasn't psychometrically validated and all this other stuff. And then right as we said, okay, great, we're all there, we started to get some pretty good performance, because you got to give teachers 3 years with an assessment so they can understand what it is, so you can understand how it's delivered, so they can align all the instruction, so that our chief academic officers can make sure that we have formative assessments that line it all up. We started to do pretty well, and then we had the pandemic. And during the pandemic, that's when they went in and we had a new state superintendent. The new state superintendent said, I don't like this assessment. We're going to keep calling it, we're going to call it MCAP, but we're going to put in place now some game theory logic, and we're going to ultimately make the test adaptive so that when you start to take the test, if you get this question right, you go here. If you get the question wrong, you go here. And what they found was the adaptive logic that they put in the assessment was after you miss 3 questions, you can't get above a 1 on the test. It takes you and puts you all the way down the path. And even if you get every one of those questions right, it won't ramp you back up to those higher level questions. So everybody scores 4. So when Carrie Wright came in, she was like, oh, this is bad. So then she said, well, we'll go with NAACP testing because everybody knows NAACP testing and we have NAACP testing. And so now we're all looking at NAACP test scores. And the problem with NAACP test scores is it is one of the smallest sample sizes of students. And everybody makes judgments based on literally a few thousand students in the state of Maryland take the NAACP test. And then that ultimately becomes the way in which we say whether or not our schools are doing right and well. And if you didn't know, we have the highest NAACP scores. I scored the highest on a NAACP test ever in the history of NAACP tests. You know, it sounds great. So fact check me out because we don't necessarily have to tell the truth anymore. We just get the same things, right? Well, and so fact check me on it. You can't because nobody knows how they did on the NAACP scores. Well, maybe I have the best school. So I have the best school with the highest NAACP score. So I'm going to say that I have the schools, our schools have the best. No, they can't attribute back to the school. We have no idea how our kids in St. Mary's County actually performed on the NAACP test. We don't know for the kid. We don't know any of the information as far as what school they went to. We don't even know what county they're in. They take a couple of thousand kids from the entire state, they put them all together and they say, that's your NAACP score. And I'm sorry, but if no one's ever going to report my score and it doesn't really mean anything to me personally, been working with teenagers forever, you don't necessarily get the best effort. And so the NAACP as an assessment tool is a real challenge. Just a little bit of history. You know, it was introduced in the early 70s. It was supposed to be just kind of a baseline looking test. It ultimately has become the cudgel that they beat public schools over the head with. And everybody just loves to line up to talk about the fact that we're all failing because we don't have the right NAACP score. So the other way you can look at student performance is you can look at what the kids are actually doing in the classroom. You can look at how they're actually doing on the assignments that you see with your children in the classroom. At the elementary level here, we have standards-based report cards. And those power standards at each grade level are aligned directly back to learning goals. So you can see exactly where your child is excelling, where they have challenges, where they have gaps. So you can see all of that information. Then when you get to high school, you can go on an online the online grade book. You can see exactly what was asked of them. You can see exactly what they did. You can see the exact score. You can see the progression from year to year to year. And really one of the greatest measures of schools should be by what is their promotion and their retention rate, and then ultimately their dropout and graduation rate. And Maryland has one of the higher graduation rates at 88% for the entire state of Maryland, and we're over 90% for the state of Maryland, or for St. Mary's County. We were as high as 92% overall for the county before the pandemic, and we are slowly ticking our way back to it. So a very long response to a very complicated question. And really, why we brought the people here this evening is to talk about what's going on. Like how many people have been in elementary school this year in St. Mary's County? Fantastic. How many people actually were in an elementary school and saw reading instruction? Great. How many people were in an elementary school and reading instruction and said to themselves, this isn't working? Well, it depends on who you were with and what you're doing. So, preschool, yes. I mean, well, that's why you have subject matter experts tonight to talk a little bit about what exactly is going on in the schools. Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm sorry, we have cards if you have a question. So please raise your hand and Linda will pass a card to you. So I don't know.
That could be really effective if people put down questions and then we'll let them present them.
Yeah, that's what I was about to suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, still hand out the cards, and as you think of them, that would be great.
So Linda will pass a card to you if you like. And we will take questions. Janice and I will do a Q&A session, and I'll facilitate the question and answer portion for you.
Perfect. But I will stay here until they kick us off.
Hey, until you run out of spit.
I will stay here until I run out of spit. Yeah. All right. Yes.
Hold on. So hold on. I think she said we were gonna transition
Okay.
to the board.
I was gonna let the
Yeah.
subject matter experts come up here. How about if we have our two principals, we'll have our chief academic officer, we'll go through our presentation. And as we're working through this, write down your questions, and when we're done, we'll do Q&A.
I'm sure that we'll get more questions based off of what we hear from this
That would be
presentation.
great.
Yep.
But if at the end of that, you have questions outside of the presentation, I am here to stay. I'm gonna go over there and sit.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Smith said, I am Lisa Walker. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. I don't think I need to use a microphone because I'm using my teacher voice. But if I need my microphone, I absolutely will. We sent the PowerPoint presentation to Dr. Walthauer, and it's up here, but unfortunately it's PDF, so it's not going to have links. But Mia's going to help me with some things. But we will be giving you the PowerPoint presentation for anyone who has it with all the hot links. So everything we're going to share with you, you can see, because you can get in and play with the data and look at those things by school, by county, and state. I will give you a brief overview. Dr. Walther, I've also brought you a hard copy of the comprehensive literacy plan and tonight's presentation. But again, the digital link is what you probably want so you can get played with the data. So I will begin. Yeah, and then because at the end, then we'll go to the senior. Oh, right. And that we won't worry about. Okay. So the first thing I just want to share with you are all the different supports centrally that we have for schools in regard to literacy. The first one is at this time, my office, which is the Chief Academic Officer, as I said, we oversee grades K through 12. And at this time, Dr. Kelly Hall, who many of you know, she oversees pre-K. As Dr. Smith said, I am retiring, so they may do some restructuring. And pre-K will be then under the Chief Academic Officer, so it'll be pre-K through 12 in the near future, July 1. Mary Pat Smith is the supervisor for elementary ELA, which is grades K through 5. And then Michelle Gallant Wall is the supervisor for secondary ELA, and that is grades 6 through 12. So anytime you hear someone say secondary, they're talking about grades 6 through 12. Kelly Hall, which is different from Dr. Hall, I always call her Kelly I.E. Hall. She is our lead reading interventionist. She works in my office and she oversees 7 hourly literacy intervention teachers, and they are deployed to schools based on data 3 times a year. So not that they're deployed 3 times a year, they go to schools every day, but they're deployed to schools based on data we collect, and I'll talk a little bit about that, 3 times per year. And right now we have 7 of those teachers, and they are supporting Park Hall, Piney Point, Harbor, Dent, Oakville, Lexington Park, and Greenview, Knowles Elementary Schools. So those are the schools right now, based on data mid-year, that are getting the hourly interventionists. We have literacy coaches, 1 at each high school. And then we have instructional resource teachers. We have at least 1 at every elementary and middle school. If you are a Title I school, like Ms. Thorntonson and Dr. Scowar, they have up to 4 because those are funded with title grants, but the county funds 1 per school. So we talked a little bit about the MCAP. Dr. Smith talked about the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. And there is, when you see this, the Maryland report card link. Now, we could go in for hours. This is the report card link, and please, when you do get the PowerPoint presentation, if you haven't done so already, I know many of you have, it is very intuitive and very easy to use. You can look up the district in comparison to the state. You can see any school in the state and how they did. You can look up disaggregated subgroups. You can look at trend data since 2021. You can see the graph data both as a graph and as a table, which is nice because I kind of like to see them both in comparison. And most times it does show the county data to the state data. So in every case, and as I said, I'm not going to get into this other than to tell you, for our MCAP ELA, English Language Arts data, in every single grade level, St. Mary's County Public Schools is above the state average. So we, although we're not where we want to be, we are above the state average for every single grade level. So what we need to though look at is how do our subgroups do? How do our boys versus girls do? How do our special education versus our economically disadvantaged students do? And you can do that all from that website. It is to be noted though, that MCAP only starts in 3rd grade. So it's not showing you the data for our kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, or our pre-K students. So the good question was, how else are we going to assess those students? So we assess them right now. We are required by law. It was Senate Bill 734 to screen every single one of our kindergarten students for reading difficulties, foundational reading. And we have actually in St. Mary's County Public Schools did that for the last 20 years. We were ahead of the game, and it was nice because I'd go to meetings and people were scrambling because they hadn't done this before. And not only did we do kindergartners, we did kindergarten through 5th grade. We did all our kids. We still continue to do assessment of kindergarten through 5th grade with the DIBELS assessment, which was approved by the state as one of the tests or screeners we could use, which stands for the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Literacy Skills. And we do not give that to pre-K. That test does not go to pre-K, but there's a test called the IGDs, which is given to pre-K students 3 times a year. And then we do use that data to do a few things. We use it to then deploy those literacy intervention teachers to the schools that the data shows that. We also are required by that law to inform parents in writing if their students have screened that they are at risk for reading difficulties. So a student may get 3 letters a year. Am I right, ladies, on that? They may get 1 letter, they may get 2. And we do that.
They don't get it.
We hope they don't get any. But we do have letters that go out 3 times a year based on this data to inform the parents. And not only does it inform the parents, but it has to share with the parents what it is our plan is to help remedy that student's reading difficulties.
Don't leave. Go back. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's forward. Yeah. Let's see.
Here we go.
Right, because again, talk a little bit about the USTs.
Oh,
Yeah.
universal screening teams.
Yes.
Okay, so the universal screening starts just went right over there.
Yes, and
So
In case people hear what USTs are, universal screening teams,
yeah,
who are they? What
different
are
acronym for
Yes.
that. We want to make sure that
Yes.
you know what a universal screening team is. So when we give that data 3 times a year, we have worked with schools so that each of their grade level teams brings their team together. And when I say team, if I'm a 1st grade teacher, I have a 1st grade team. I have all the 1st grade teachers I'm working with, and usually it's the instructional resource teacher and the school administrator, and they sit down and they analyze that data together. And we have created what we call decision trees. And we did that, and they're all the same thing as a flowchart. So it shares with if a student is performing this on one of those subtests, these are the questions you ask, and these are the things that you would do to help remedy if the student is at risk for that. So that is done 3 different times. We support schools doing that because it takes time to have those universal screening teams, and these ladies can absolutely tell you way more because they sit on 6 of those teams 3 times a year, 18 of them. Yep. And we use our collaborative planning funds that is provided to us by Title II funding, so that we can have substitutes or gives teachers stipends to stay after school to actually have those longer conversations than maybe their planning period will allow them to have. So is that enough for the universal?
I didn't want to leave that.
A lot of teams are getting to the point, and Ms. Thorstensen is one of them, that we are actually piloting using universal screening team data, what we call foundations flexible grouping. And so what happens is the universal screening teams, and it's for grades, what, Donna?
The pilot is for 1st through 3rd.
1st through 3rd grade. When they have those universal screening teams and they look at the data, then there's 4 teachers in 1st grade, then they actually flexibly put those students in groups with specific teachers to meet those specific students' learning needs at that that level. Did you want to expand on that at all, Donna? Because I know you're more.
Well, it's nice because it's not just, these aren't my kids and those aren't your kids. These are our kids. So all of those first graders are in a group together, and then we sort them based on their individual needs. And for us, that makes it a little bit easier to deploy the help where it's needed. So some of the students that are struggling most, we try to make sure all of those positions that we have that we fund through Title I, or our leaders or whomever, we're making sure we're deploying that help where it's needed most. So it has helped from my perspective with that collaborative piece that we want so much from our teachers, because they're all working together and they really have to support each other through that process.
And you guys started that last year, and we just started it this year at Lexington Park. And the depth of understanding of students' really specific needs in terms of their reading skills has just grown exponentially. I sat in 3 of them today, and I think about what it was like at the first one in October and what it was like now. It's just light years difference. And you watch how the supervisors don't have to totally shape and guide the conversation. The teachers are saying, well, look over here in nonsense word fluency. He really gets that, but then he can't carry it through to down here. I feel like for me, who has a reading degree, for the first time, I am really leading my teachers to understand how to move children forward, first in foundational skills, and then to use those skills to be able to understand and make meaningful use of the knowledge they get from reading. So we're a year behind Carver, but we're on a path.
So there is a link when you get this to this data, and this data is all our DIBELS data for this year. It's going to show you our school system from beginning of the year. We see Boy, it's beginning of the year. Moy is middle of the year, and Oi is end of year. And you're going to look at that, but it is by the school, and it's by each school, and it's by each grade level. So to give you an idea, kindergarten in St. Mary's County Public Schools, we started at 38% on our DIBELS when this kiddos first assessment we gave them. At the middle of the year, those same kindergartners were at 56% of proficiency. And right now, in the last week, we gave it for the last time this year, and they're at 71% proficiency. So we've seen great gains. Now, the concern is, what's it going to look like when they come to first grade again, too, right? So we have that summer, unfortunately, that happens also. And of course, then the test gets a little more rigorous because now they're in first grade. So they have a little bit more attainment to do. But it's
I was going to say something else about the DIBELS scores too. So they take the test 3 times a year. The needle moves each time though. So for example, the needle may be set here for proficiency on the first administration of that test. It moves for mid-year, and then it moves again for end of year. So that type of growth, just a little more perspective, that's huge. The gains that we made in kindergarten specifically that Ms. Bachner was referencing.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because I think it's important that we expect, a kindergarten or even a second grader, words, the fluency, we're going to expect them to read a lot fewer words in the beginning of second grade than at the middle and the end. That needle does go up. And so that's good data. But take a look at that data because it goes all up. Now, we're not seeing that growth in 4th and 5th grade as much. Okay, so we're not seeing that growth as much in 4th and 5th, and as a concern because as we shared with you, we're doing that pilot in K1 and 2 and 3, right? And 4 and 5 usually are the kids who have been at risk for quite some time, and it's really hard then to do that, but we're looking into different interventions for that.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You're talking about the school as a whole, St. Mary's County school. I, as well as a lot of us, are specifically concerned about the growth of the great Lexington Park Elementary throughout all the schools.
Correct, but this data link, when you
I
get that, we
understand
have
that.
that, yeah.
But you're not sharing, I'm just calling your attention to, we are concerned about what is happening specifically at Lexington Park. As you talk about the general
Well, I have George
too, I just
Washington
want to
Carver,
share
I
that.
can share that.
And Lexington Park.
George Washington Carver for kindergarten started at 21%. Mid-year, they were at 38%, and they ended the year at 52%.
How about Lexington Park?
Lexington Park started at 24%, 26%, and ended at 34%.
Is this currently right now?
Yes.
Okay,
Currently
so
right now.
because the 23-24 year was not like that. So there's been, you're saying you recently, as you have mentioned,
Yep.
just recently within the past,
Year.
this year, January, you've started within the
No.
past year,
In
the
September.
school year? Okay,
Yes, also.
you're getting more resources.
Not
Which
more
is-
resources,
well,
actually, it's the same amount
well,
of resources.
Something that's
just
happening
We're
that's
doing some
different,
different programming.
that changed the dynamics recently, within a year.
Over the last 5 years, we have gone, we're always in science of reading. We have gone and we have made sure that all of our teachers are trained and they go through all the modules. We have invested as a whole system in moving toward this. The pilot that's going on with foundations and this regrouping is something that started last year and we saw very, very promising data with it. And so this year, I think we have four schools that are doing this. We're tracking all of this data, all the lessons learned, and then next year it will be expanded beyond. The large challenge that we have is that persistently children are not reading outside of school. Period. For pleasure or for resource, we are moving away from. All of us are moving away from what traditionally we used to do for pleasure. We would go into a quiet room, we would pick up a book and we would read. And that is something that we are seeing people move away from. And if there's any message that can come at the end of this is, if you are at your home and you are not reading with your child at home, at least daily, that's going to be a real trouble. We have them for a time and they have 135 minutes of reading language arts instruction every single day, 135 minutes every single day out of 24 hours. And so we can do a great deal of work with them during that time, but it's how then do we extend that into outside of the building, outside of the school. We have much to make up, but I will tell you that what we're seeing is very promising work right now. And it is for people who like data, right? For people who really want to go in there and drive into what exactly are you doing? This is exactly what we're doing. This is exactly how we're performing it. This is exactly how we're making sure that everybody is doing it in the same way. This is exactly how we're determining whether or not they've mastered. This is exactly what we are doing when they haven't. This is how we're going and doing that intervention. In fact, we've even started a whole new module of response to intervention to find out what is the most effective way to deliver an intervention so that then we can expand on that and grow that out. And we're starting with some of our greatest areas of challenge. And certainly right now, it's these two schools.
Can you just say one thing? I think for schools like ours, there's often this conundrum. What's more important? Building relationships and making sure kids feel safe and feel valued and feel that the people surrounding them believe they can learn and do? Or is it academics? It's both. It's both. And I think that's one of the things for me this year, and I think for you last year, that I feel like we really brought together. We have continued at Lexington Park Elementary our commitment to creating this environment that is safe, that is nurturing, that is loving, that lets us have fun sometimes. But we're serious as a heart attack about doing these flex groupings and making sure that you're in the right flex group with the right intervention. And if within 2 weeks we don't see you making progress, we're coming back to the table and we're saying, maybe phonics for reading isn't the best. Maybe you need to go over here. And that, and like you were saying, more resources. You're right, Lisa. It's not really more resources. It's a better path. And it's coordinating all the resources in the two ways the kids need the most. They have to have people who love them. They do. Absolutely. But they also have to have people who know their main job is to teach them. And the pride on their faces, like when they stop you in the hall and say, hey, I'm reading this book, and it's legit. They love it. And I feel like the progress we're making is astounding.
It's definitely consistent from your two schools and the other two schools, one in the central, one in the northern part of the county. We're seeing that this model is effective. And what I like most about it is, and you referred to it very briefly, but that it makes teachers feel very comfortable with data. And so a lot of times, people aren't necessarily comfortable saying, I'm struggling in my classroom, my kids are struggling in my classroom. In this, it's everybody in first grade. There's a great deal of ownership of the grade level, and then really diving into how they can all pool resources and move things around. And the flexible grouping and regrouping of children is a key component of it.
And we keep on talking about intervention with flexible grouping. It also goes the other way. So we have a kiddo in a classroom that is excelling in reading. We don't want to hold them back, right? So they're just with the kids kind of going, and that flexible grouping allows us to know which kids also have already met or exceeded the core standard and put them in a flexible group. We're pushing them further. They're going further, and it allows us to do that too. And I think that's some of also our growth that we're seeing is because we're not kind of holding students, I don't want to say back, but they're going at their rate, just as kids who need an intervention are now going at their rate. And kids who are on grade level, like I was in reading, are going at their rate. So everybody, I think, gets what they need during that flexible grouping time. So I didn't want you to think it's just for kids on intervention. It's for kids getting the level of reading instruction, regardless of what level they're at their
Because
level.
lots of times those kids that were soaring, it was hard to get their needs met because you were so busy taking care of kids who couldn't read. So you kind of, okay, they're fine. They'll be fine.
They get bored.
So there have been more resources. I've had to buy more novels this year because of the students that are excelling, because we're meeting them where they are. We've been able to do more novel studies. So I've had to set aside more money for purchase of novels. Just like, that's a good problem to have for sure. That's how I want.
Thanks, Title I.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'll buy anybody novels. So.
Okay. I'll hit you up next.
No.
The other thing we wanted to share with you is we have lots of goals, and we have lots of other data that we use, and we want to share that with you. It's no secret at all. We had to buy the blueprint. I'm sure you've heard of blueprint before. The Maryland blueprint required us in all school systems to develop and have submitted to both the AIB, which is the governing board of the blueprint, as well as MSD, the Maryland State Department of Education, a comprehensive literacy plan. We had ours submitted last summer. It was approved, and it is linked here. I bought a hard copy for Janice so that she could make copies, and of course you can make your own copy. All of it's there. It starts, it is comprehensive, and it's supposed to share what our plans are for the next 5 years, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and what we're going to do as a next step. So I just wanted to share with you, it's very comprehensive. The pages 1 through 5 give an overview, the purpose and explanation of our current literacy structures. And what that means is, like, what are we doing during literacy time? Some of you wanted that when we saw some questions, like, what are we using? We're using Haggerty and Foundations with our primary students. We have a new textbook series as of last year called Benchmark. It is a high quality instructional material, which is required by Maryland State Department of Education. So we have that is happening at each of our elementary schools. And as it's and they're also about the secondary schools, what they're using and how much time that they're using, and on task for ELA also. The pages 6 through 13 of that document is going to show you trend data, and it is not only MCAP, it's disaggregated by subgroups that you want to see. It is not often by school, so that's why I gave you the MCAP site for those 3 through 12 and the DIBELS assessments, because you can look at that by school if you want to see that, but it's trend data for our school system in general by grade levels that we have. And then pages 14 through 33, if you really want to see where we are with state required literacy indicators, page 14 through 34 share all of the required state indicators. We have them listed there. It's really nice. It shows you what the indicators, gives you a little description of what it means, because we all kind of need that sometimes when it's kind of like MSDEEs. And then it's like a column, it's a table. The second column shows where St. Mary's County Public Schools is in meeting those indicators. And that's what was approved by MSDE and the AIB. They wanted to see, did your data and did your evidence show where you are in other words, have you mastered that? Are you working toward it? Or we're not even seeing it yet. So that's what we have a rating for each of the indicators where we are as of last year, at the end of the year. It shares what the evidence was used to get that rating, and then it provides what we said we're promised we're going to do as a next step. We also have lots and lots of work to do with our multilingual learners. That absolutely came through in every single one of our grade bands. Elementary, middle, and high school, we have a great number of students now, multilingual learners. That percentage of students has greatly increased in the last 5 years, and that actually is in the trend data, so you can look at actually the numbers. But that came out as evidence that we really need to have more resources and make sure that when we are adopting things like new curriculum resources, they have materials and supports for multilingual learners for our teachers so that they can teach them.
What was that rating?
Excuse me?
What was that rating?
What do you mean rating?
You said.
Each indicator has a different rating. Each indicator,
I
some we were great and mastered, and others we are just
was
becoming.
thinking it was.
No, there's not an overall rating. And then I just wanted to share with you public literacy resources, and I was gonna have you bring those up, Mia, but I think because of time, do you guys want me just kind of share it in general what they are, and then we can ask more questions? Is that what you prefer? I don't want to do that. Is that better? Okay. So some of the resources I gave you, these are public facing. They're right now. You go to our website, they're there. Open them up. First one is students at risk for reading difficulties. That actually is the letter and what we send home to parents that 3 times a year if a student is not as at risk by that DIBELS assessment. So you can see what that letter looks like that those parents are getting when students are at risk. And yes, we do have Spanish version that we send home with students that, or whatever their home language is. It also shares with them on that site the different resources and the different things that we use for them. Did you want to say anything about that? I thought you were ready to say. So that is absolutely a resource that you can see. So if your student never got one of those letters, good for you, but it is good for you to see what those letters look like. The next thing, and by the way, as I said, that's the law. Senate Bill 734 is that first one that we are required to put that on our website and share that information with everybody on a yearly basis. The second one is also a law. It's a House bill. It is the Specialized Intervention Services data. We are required to gather that data every year, and we are required to post it. So that is as of last year's data. We collect it for the previous year every December. And so what that data is going to show you is it's going to show you data on the interventions we did, and there are rules for the intervention. It has to happen 3 times a week for at least 90 minutes for at least 10 weeks in a row is your specialized intervention services data. And it does not include any special education students. So that's really, really important for you to know. Those are all the interventions we've done with non-special ed students. And you know, there's a lot of our littles sometimes have speech services, so they have an IEP, so they would not be included in that. So keep that in mind. That also includes behavioral interventions as well as academic interventions. So that data shows both academic interventions and behavior interventions for those students. Some links I want to share with you is these are unbelievable. Please, if you haven't gone to our student family webpage and gone to academics and then clicked on reading language arts elementary and reading language arts secondary, it shows you all of our course syllabi in high school. It shows you every single novel on our list. It shows you all summer reading. It gives you access of how we can get kids extra supports on our Schoology, which we've bought and purchased for every single student. It gives you links to the public library. We get all our kids a public library card unless a parent opts out from that, which they have the ability to do. So all of those things are on those links, as well as the people that actually put that information up. So if you have any questions, if something's not working or it's not getting you the information you need, it shares their email address where you can actually go and make sure that you get your questions answered for you or your child. And as Dr. Smith has been saying this whole time, partnerships are really important. We need kids to attend school every day. We can't teach them if they're not there. I shared data, Janice, if you remember a few sessions ago at one of our educational meetings, that showed that when we had students in interventions and they attended, they met the end goal of the intervention and were dismissed, and kids who attended were fine and stayed not at risk, and kids who missed them and started not attending needed the intervention again. So we have data to support that. Important to read to your children. Have your kids read to you. Sometimes it looks really funny when they're in kindergarten. What they read to you is not necessarily the book, but it's important for them to do that. Show children you are a reader. Turn off all the electronics and sit as a family and just kind of read. Get a library book. As I said, the link's there. Get a library book. Summer's coming. Library's a great place to take your kids at least once a week. Give the gift of a book for birthdays and holidays. And just talk with your children. Answer their questions fully. I know sometimes it's hard, especially at the end of a long day. Prompt them to answer your questions, and it really teaches that vocabulary, which is that big pre-reading skill that we want all our kids to do. So I'm going to sit down now, Mia, and let them ask questions.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. That was a wealth of information. I'm going to call Dr. Wallflower back up. We're going to do the Q&A together. I'm going to walk around and gather up some questions. So if you have a question on the card, raise it up, and we'll give it to you. I want to start off with a question of my own. You said that report does not include the special needs students.
Yes, the specialized interventions.
And is there somewhere that captures data for the students that are missing?
If a student is special education, then they should have specialized instruction because that's why they have an IEP. So that data is collected because they have an IEP, and that is reported to their parents on a quarterly basis. Now, I don't know why the state didn't ask us to report that, but it is one of their rules that they won't, and it's because they're getting that data from the specially designed instruction.
So we have a question from the audience. They would like to know who completes your fidelity checks and who follows up with the data collected.
Fidelity checks means like the data from the assessments.
Intervention, fidelity, what they're, how they're supposed to be doing that.
Well, Kelly I.E. Hall, she's our lead interventionist, and one of her jobs is to review that data that's incoming from our LITs, LEDAs, and what's entered. And I should say, if a student is in a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, that is required to be put into our data warehouse, which is called Performance Matters. And that is what then Kelly Hall goes in and makes sure that if a student is in an intervention, that they are there, and then that data is collected. She does that at least once a month, and then she reaches out first to a teacher or the interventionist if they're not adding that data in, just to say, hey, you need to update the data. And then if we're not getting a response, we always go to the principal to have that discussion with the teacher to make sure they're entering the data in Performance Matters. For the state required data for fidelity, we have a assessment and accountability office. Donna is the new director of assessment or accountability. Not yet. come July 1st. She's been promoted to that position. And so her job will be to make sure that all of the data is checked, balanced, reported both locally as well as to the state as required.
And from a school perspective, I know at both of our schools, we have 3 administrators that are constantly doing walkthroughs while that instruction is going on. We have instructional resource teachers. I have 4 instructional resource teachers and 2 academic success mentor teachers.
Because you're Title I.
Because we're Title I. So we've got 6 folks that are kind of deployed throughout the building, and they're pushing in. We have something that we call train the trainer models. So we train those folks, and then they train our people in-house. So kids are used to seeing my face pop in and out of classrooms, just quick spot checks to see what's going on, get a temperature read of what's going on, and making sure we're doing things the way that they're supposed to be doing.
And one thing, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and we do very much the same thing. Since this is our first year of flex grouping and all of that, we also do a lot of talking with teachers about what they're doing with one instruction. So we're very careful not to take their planning time. So we love Title II money. We do after school chats where they come together and they talk about what's going well, what's not going well. We go over their data. We have every other week, we have data meetings as well, and we do 2, I know. And then we have the UST meetings. But the full focus and attention on what's actually happening and how students are performing is intense.
The other thing that we've done in the last 2 years, and I'm sure I see Ms. Pipkin here, she probably knows, is that we're very, very much that teachers must use our vetted resources in the classroom. They cannot use what they want to use. They have to use our vetted resources. Now they can ask us to look at resources, to consider those, and make sure they kind of go through a process of screening to make sure that those are high quality materials. But that is something that is required and has been, we've been pretty strict about it, all grade levels K through 12 for the last 2 years specifically.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Hall, I know you had a question and you couldn't write it down. Did you want to ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned that you've been in the program for about a year. You said the pilot program. So, yes, ma'am. My bad. I'm sorry.
We need you to come to lunch duty.
We were talking about the pilot program, and we talked about the internal assessments that are being done. I'm curious about the comparison to the state assessments versus what we're doing here. And after your 1 year, what type of improvement did you see in the students that are participating in the program?
So let me give you a brief overview of what the pilot looks like. So let's say, for example, first grade. So we assess the students at the beginning of the school year, and then we level them based on their current level of performance. And I'll give you a prime example of why I was so excited to go to this program. I sat in on a phenomenal observation last year in a teacher's classroom. Fantastic lesson. It was a foundations level 3 lesson in a 3rd grade classroom, but it was very clear that there were students that weren't getting a whole lot out of the lesson, even though it was engaging. The teacher was using materials that she was supposed to be using because it was above the kids' head. So what we've done is we've taken those kids, and instead of making a kid sit through a whole year of foundations level 3, when really he should probably be in level 2, maybe even like towards the end of level 1, that's where we're starting them. And we're seeing so much more progression. They're moving faster because we are moving they're moving at a faster rate because we're meeting them where they are, rather than we're giving them instruction here and they're slowly creeping toward it. So that's what we're seeing at Carver. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing at Lexington Park.
It's that targeted Instruction.
But I think your question though is how does that correlate then to state testing, right?
Correct.
So remember Dibbles, we do K-5, but MCAP only starts at grade 3 at the end of grade 3. So what we will want to do, especially with this pilot, is look at these third graders, okay, at the end of the year. Where are they with Dibbles? Are they at risk? Are they poor? Are they poor? We want them to be poor, right? Okay, 4 plus. And then does that correlate to what they're doing on MCAP? Even though MCAP's changing and things like that, we do want to see if there is a correlation. In other words, Dibbles says they're doing what they should be doing on grade level. Are we seeing that on MCAP? So that's what we'll have to, but we don't have anything like that from the state for K-1 and
What, I mean, when you compare the assessments, what would be the difference between what they're doing at the state level versus what you're doing?
well, MCAP is, and you can get, it's more of the comprehensive English language arts assessment where foundations, which is our pilot for foundational skills or foundational skills. So there are some differences in the assessment. So you have to be careful in exactly the comparison of it.
Like on MCAP, they're gonna have a reading passage and then they'll have to do some writing, some written responses, although it's not written.
No, it's
We
time.
wish it was. It's typed.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen a third grader type, not approved now. On a time test, I'll add that in there too, but, they read passages and they respond to it. It could be multiple choice. It could be short answer. But there's a variety of questions on that. So that's what that assessment looks like. But then for Dibbles, there's multiple subtests that they take, and it's things like nonsense word fluency, oral reading fluency, like those skills that lead them to being able to read what's on that text.
Okay.
So BJ, I can give a real example to that for juniors. Junior was caught in being in elementary when the pandemic hit. And then when we went full, all virtual, it sucked personally, it sucked for the elementary students. I get it. We were following mandate. So that's where we saw it hit really because, and also on both sides, the teachers were scrambling how to do what they do in the classroom in a virtual setting with the multiple distractions. But what I can say, when he transitioned from second to third grade, Duke Elementary, the principal made the decision to move the teachers with those students so that they had kind of a sense of familiarity with what they were doing all virtual. Then when we went to the hybrid, when we got the test results, we actually, the beautiful thing is PTA decided to host a meeting for us to all kind of walk through it together because it was very difficult. Kids didn't understand that a lot of things they would have gotten in the classroom setting, they didn't get because it was all virtual. We saw a major uptick when they went back to a hybrid and they were doing the 2 days in the classroom, 2 days still virtual. And then by the time we went back to all school, we saw an even greater jump. So I can say what they were doing then, 21, 22 into 23, I can say for junior, we saw a difference. And now I can't get the boy to stop reading and stop talking. But I can see we did see it and we were able to walk through it together with the school.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
James has a few questions.
Yeah, I want to talk about really address literacy partnerships, parents, caregivers, and community. And some of the tips that were given on the PowerPoint.
%.
88% poverty level. And these are really good suggestions, but please don't get me wrong what I'm trying to say. This is all to help the children read so that they will be functional readers. So the attendance, Dr. Smith is going to talk about attendance. If they don't come to school,
It is the greatest indicator of academic success is regular attendance at school. There is nothing
more important than the child attending school every single day. That is that.
Yes, so I was thinking.
Face to face.
A couple of things, the partnerships with social services, in terms of attendance, where are we there? Some of these folks are on the financial assistance, and they have to get the kids to school. I know at one point, I have to go back in history because I know time. They used to have to come to school before they got their checks, per se, and they had to fill out of it, at the school system, because we're all, softies and all that you can. But read to our children. I know it used to be like a 20-minute a night, and then they brought their papers and they put up the bookworms, and
Still do it.
we did all those things. Still do it. You have 80% poverty level. A lot of these parents are up at the crack of dawn working at McDonald's. They depend on the free school lunches, which Donald Trump is trying to take away for the children to eat. So you have another conundrum. So how are they expected to do more than just put the plate, eat, go on so-and-so till I get off from work and all that? I know that's not probably as a school system can solve it, and it's not supposed to do that. This is a team or community, but we know that a lot of these people are not in the position to do what the data to show that school system is doing. Looks like all that they can do with tongue hanging out. Okay, show your child you're reading. I'm back to the 80% poverty level. And a lot of them can't read. And we know that they didn't have the parents that read. They didn't have the parents that took them on field trips. They didn't have the parents that sat down and said, oh, this is funny, this is just cereal, here's some Cheerios, what is that? That's a circle? And don't know, many of them don't know how to do that.
That's right.
Oh, look at the shapes around the room. Exit, be exit, those kinds of things. 80% of poverty is I gotta work. I don't have. Gifts of books for birthdays and holidays. That's something I was thinking about. All of us are here. Here's some more thought, food for thought for this group, and what can be done. And then talk with children, answer their questions fully, prompt them to answer your questions. This develops vocabulary. Now, I just was just talking about that language experience. So we have a language therapist, speech therapist here. And we know that you can if you don't know what a monument is and you've never been to one, it's a blank word. So how can we as a community make sure that our kids are getting these experiences if they need to know how to read? If the parents haven't been, I know this. I guess it's a conundrum, and many of it, we've been answering these questions for a long time, but we're here now, and we're serious, and these people are sitting in here today, they are serious. We're not trying to put people on the spot, but we know this is not a new problem. It is nothing new. And then you get all these issues about what the teachers are not doing, what the superintendent should be doing, but the kids are not doing what they need to do. So we, again, need to find out. So these questions, here, these two news, we'd like to more follow up on some of these. Okay, so.
And so that's a great segue to invite you all for the follow-up meeting that the Education Committee will be hosting on, is it the 12th?
Yes.
Yeah, May 12th, here at the Church of the Ascension.
Yes.
Boom, I got it right.
Meeting night.
Okay. So that you can join in that conversation. So I have a few more questions from the audience. If you haven't had an opportunity to submit your question, please send it, put it on the card. If you got a lot to say, just put down a couple of words so I can call on you. Okay. So how will the changes in the Department of Education affect instruction in schools, specifically Title I schools? We hope it won't. We hope it won't.
I do not have the information to answer that question.
Okay.
I don't know if Dr. Smith does, but
Again, I don't either. We fly blind. Every single day we see a new executive order that has some kind of statement that demands us to do something, and they threaten taking federal funding away unless you are compliant. And then ultimately, good, right-thinking people, then in fact, right now we were supposed to put a sworn statement that said that we were going to that we weren't going to say diversity, inclusion, and all of these things were going to be dropped out of everything that we're saying. Now it's in judicial review. I mean, we are in a very, very, very challenging time. But I will tell you that federal allocations for Title I and Title IV and these things are written into law. And so while many people, they can bluster and they can say, they can draw down the department, that allocation is in law. And so you can feel fairly confident that that allocation will remain. But not 100% confident, because we were confident that in Maryland law that we would receive a certain level of funding in the blueprint. Yeah. So that's why we're doing all these things. That's why we ramped it all. And so that was in law. That was in law that we were going to receive that money. And then it wasn't in law. So the one thing you need to know is that you really do have a dedicated group of people working on behalf of children. And we've always figured out how to make what we have work the best that we possibly can. And that isn't going to stop. And specifically, especially with reading at the elementary level, we have had truly some of the most really gifted, thoughtful people pulling together a lot of these resources and a lot of the things that coming out of the pandemic. We learned a lot about technology. We learned a lot about what worked, and we learned a lot about what didn't work. But at the end of it, it did push us into creative spaces. And that creativity we are now seeing back in our schools. And we are a large ship with a small rudder. But I will tell you that we have put the rudder in the right direction, and the ship is moving toward where we want it to be. And again, I encourage you to, if you have somebody who is in the school system, if they have children in the school system, really talk about what's going on in the individual classrooms. And if you have questions, do not feel afraid to reach out to a school and ask. Ask the teacher, ask the assistant principal, ask the principal. If worse comes to worse, and you feel like there's no answer in the world, you don't know, you are at concerns@smcps.org comes right to me. BOE@SMCPS comes right to me and all of the board members. JS Smith@smcps.org comes right to me. Those are unfiltered ways to get a direct message to the superintendent, to the Board of Education, and to a whole host of people to answer questions. And we want to answer your questions, especially if you're talking about what is going on. In schools, we have kids that have missed over 70 days so far this year, and they just disappear. And then 3 weeks later, they come back. And it is so unfair for that child. Because they move, they get better, they learn. And if we have a child consistently in school and a parent that is connecting with the school, so much even so the better. So that really is the, you know, if the walk away is, when people tell me that my kid can't read, and parents go up to me and tell me this, I listen, and then I start asking some probing questions and say things like, do they enjoy being in school? Do they go to school regularly? Okay, then we get down to the, so do they like their teacher? Who's their teacher? Where's their school? And if they can't tell me their teacher's name, and some can't, I know that we're probably getting closer to the problem. And then at the end, I'll usually talk about how much I really enjoyed reading to my kids. I loved reading to my kids. We didn't watch TV as a family as much as we read. We read to each other. And reading with children, especially you see all these children and the parents are like, my kids are so anxious. They are so anxious. They're just like this. And that's because they're in their room, desk scrolling on all of this stuff. And if you said, take the phone away and give them a book, tell them to read a book. The children, we visited every single elementary school with a student board member and we get through the whole thing. And one of the things we always ask the kids is, you know, what books are they reading? And so many of the kids, they light up and they start talking about all the books, and Hannah might have remembered a couple, or I might have remembered a couple, but that really is key. So if you have a conversation with a kid, don't ask what video game they're playing. Don't ask what ask them what they've read. What was the last book that they read that they really enjoyed? And that's going to be extremely telling. And if you have a couple of suggestions for them, that's even so much the better. Ask a teacher, they're going to have a whole bunch.
I heard a lot of single parents when I was younger and working 2 jobs and sometimes on the weekend, I mean, not now, but I enjoy reading to my kids. However, by the time I'm done with, you know, a 10-hour job and a 6-hour job, and then they're asking questions, I'm like, look, the house is a mess. Y'all have to be somewhere like math, y'all need to shower with this bed. Otherwise, you're not making it tomorrow. I'm tired. So I understand, you know, you enjoy reading to your kids, and I'm sure lots of parents would enjoy reading to their kids, but then how do you get to that point when you're just tired? I'm working to try and pay these bills.
Come on.
So you want a realistic answer that everyone doesn't have the bandwidth. They've been at work all day, they left out before the sun, came home after the sun, cooked, cleaned. You trying to breathe. Where is the time? You know, because I'm gonna give up church because you're tired, and you know what I mean? You're trying to. I used to work at the schools in Carmel on Fridays. On my 3 hours that I had, I would get in there with Miss McCoy. That was my lady. When she passed away, God rest her soul. So do we have any solutions?
Audible.
Talk radio. Talk radio.
Stuff that we don't want to listen to anyway.
So I heard a lot today, now maybe not a lot, but I've heard a bit about getting away from the screen. And I get it, 100%. But the screens can be our friends too, like Audible or other systems that you're pointing out that's available to us. That online library that is available, you know, as well, right? So we can be deliberate in our screen time, making it work for us, right? Read aloud.
It wants to be, but I'm talking about people who couldn't afford that. I can call my dad and be like, man, I need $39.99 this month.
It's free. Free. At the line, if you have a library card, free.
ABC miles, but then it doesn't keep track of what you're doing. Every time you go back, you start to, only get a certain amount of time on it.
So one of the things that I like to include in my weekly newsletters that go into the is free. A lot of times it's the author that wrote it themselves that's reading the book to students. I did that during the pandemic with my own kids.
Right.
Yeah, well, I was up till 1 o'clock with you, my
Yeah.
children, and I'm telling you, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Thank God, and I'm very blessed to have very smart kids, because but I had a lot of resources.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
family
It
that-
takes a village, right?
Yeah.
So I absolutely, and that understanding, and what I'm also hearing is communication is key. Because if you're at home and you're wanting to be involved and you are involved, but you don't have the bandwidth, reaching out to the teachers and letting them know that and communicating so that you can get a plan for what's going to be best for your family. Because what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that this is a community. This is a collaboration. Everything that they were talking about today, with what's different, is a more holistic approach where we're bringing things together so we can give tangible, real support in ways that matter with that flexible grouping, right? Moving kids up. I was one of those accelerated readers, hated it, because are we really still on this chapter, right? And then I became disrupted, but that's a different story. That's a different story. And I also heard Dr. Smith say, reach out, please,
Yeah, I mean,
contact them.
we send home books with kids all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's, you know, that's one of our greatest reward systems within the schools. We send home books.
Well, and that all kind of goes back to where this question originally started with funding.
Yeah.
You know, we pray that funding doesn't go away, because with Title I funding, we can provide books. We can also provide training on materials for our parents. So, you know, we pray that doesn't go away.
Be
We're both,
Harvard, not Columbia.
yes. We're both community schools as well. We
We
get,
have that, yes.
yes, we've got an out-of-school time program now that meets 4 days a week. And it runs until 4:45. So those kids they stay at school for extended periods of time. And to be honest with you, if they are academically engaged during the entire school day, and then they're staying until 4:45 at night, I don't expect you to reach to those kids. They are done by that time. So, you know, but again, that's all contingent on funding. So we pray that none of that goes away, because we are trying to use our money in the smartest way possible. We try to listen to our parents, and we try to meet the needs of our families and our students. Childcare was a concern. That was something that came out of our needs assessment. So that's kind of where the after school time, the out of school program came. They needed help with getting someone getting the kids off the bus in the afternoon, and we're reinforcing the academics while they're staying there. And then you don't have to read to them at home, because they've been reading with us for, close to 10 hours. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's covered in the community schools.
You're speaking a lot. And you
One second, and you can cut off Dr. Smith.
But Ms. Thomas was very strongly about Lexington Park, and you need to understand that both of the resource levels for both of these schools are very similar in their overall structure.
Right.
And really, so if you can speak to the after, out of school time as well, Lexington Park.
So we are, again, like, Carver started being a community school. They were the first
You
community.
were the first community school.
And then we came on the next year. So this is our second year. And the second year, you get to start the after school time.
Yes.
We've started with 2 days, and it's great. Kids love it. We've got our total school population is 400, but that includes pre-K, and they don't count. So we have about 90 kids who stay, and they get to do all kinds of things. There's a reading time. We start with a reading time and snack. You eat and you read, and then you get to do things like play basketball or sew. We had a sewing book. Lots of tears. I don't know if it was the kids who signed up, but they were so emotional they couldn't get it right. We ended up having not a chess club, but like just a games club. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. But it's
cooking club.
Cooking, oh, of course, cooking.
That's another way you can kind of reinforce those reading skills at home. Cook with your kids, have them read the directions to you.
Yeah.
But you're going to be doing
That
it
cooking
anyways.
club, I benefited from that.
Real quick, we're talking about collaboration. There's a cooperative extension service that does these kinds of things. 4-H clubs in schools, all that stuff has happened in the past. It does not have to all be, generated through the school. It can be the community, the social workers as home visitors with book packets. So I'm just thinking, out of the box kinds of things that we can collaborate on, that people can be a part of, but it's got to be structured and systematized in order for us to do it. And
So
sometimes,
come to next month's branch meeting, that's right, exploring exactly that.
right.
And it's one of the things that Patrice and I were talking about before we got started. Usually Title I has summer programs, and this year we don't have the funds for it. So Patrice and I have started talking about what we want to do and involve the library and anybody else who wants to work with us. So I'm coming next time. Let's figure out summer thing.
Circles, which is St. Mary's, which is now for adults, on how to, people who can come around you to mentor you for whatever it may be, whether it's you need financial literacy, whether you need health information, whether you need management of your children and how you get them to go to sleep at night. So you have that circle of people around you. Patrice is building bridges, again, is another community effort with those reaching children after school. Then we have Judy Centers in 3 of our Title I schools also who do parent cafes and opportunities for parents to come under a structured environment to figure out some skills that you can help your children with. So again, they're saying reach out. There are school and non-school entities of where you can get that support, but you just got to ask, and don't get the right answer, then go to somebody else. You know that.
So I have quite a few questions here, and I'm going to combine a few. So let's get prepared, okay?
We only got 6% left on the stream.
All right. So, what are you doing to reach out directly to the parents to question why students aren't in school, semicolon, okay? And when you are reaching out to the parents, taking into consideration that you mentioned the lack of competent readers at home, how are you taking that into consideration when communicating to the parents about academic process in addition to that attendance issue?
You want to start, or you want me to start? Because this has been a big push in our school this year. So I'll go ahead and start. Yeah. And then you tell me all the great things, and maybe I'll hear something that you're doing that we're not doing, and vice versa. So, pandemic hit us hard. Our attendance because they had lost loved ones to COVID, and they were sure it could happen to them. I don't blame them. I couldn't argue with people about that. But slowly we've come back, and this year we decided that this was it. This was our year. So the first day that a child is absent, one of the members of our attendance committee calls that family. We also use Class Dojo. Day and all that. We just don't let it go. We just keep reaching back out. Then sometimes the guidance counselor and our community schools coordinator and or me or whoever, we go out to the house to make sure everything's okay, how we help, what do you need. And then I think the thing we've done this year that has made the biggest difference is we set up this set of attendance incentives. Or who are in the targeted attendance group. Like we have a funding for them. If they're there the whole week, they get ice cream at lunch. We think we're And thank you to community schools for providing the funds to do that through our food service. And then for this class, we have every day that your class has perfect attendance, everybody's there, we get to put a little panda, on the calendar. And at the end of the month, the class with the greatest number gets to host the grade level panda. And they get to rename the panda. And then, quarterly, we have the highest grade, the grade level, the highest attendance gets a popcorn party or extra recess, they vote. And, so I'm sure you're doing everything.
We're doing all things too, yeah. You know, we do have pants, yeah, so, yeah, it's pretty competitive too. So we have an initiative called PANTS. It stands for Perfect Attendance No Parties. So when the entire class is there and everybody has made it there by 8:20 is our cutoff, I visit that classroom and I drop off a sparkly pair of pants. And, it's not full-size pants, they're about this big. I should have brought a pair with me, but that is the silliest thing, but the kids are so into it. And I can't tell you how awesome it is to walk into a classroom and be greeted with, They lose their minds. Yeah. I've got two classes right now. The Chamberlain is a kindergarten class, and the North is fifth grade class, and they are neck and neck with their number of kids that they've earned. And I'm telling you that it's working. It's things like silly little things like that work. That's it. I'm off. But you hit the nail on the head. I think when you're working with, and we all run attendance committees. It starts with communicating with the families on a non-judgmental basis and letting them know that we know how tough it is. And we are not here to judge. We want to know how we can help and what can we do to get these kids in school, because it all boils down to it. We've said it a million times tonight. They have to be in school first, because none of this stuff happens without them showing up first. So they've got to be in school.
In the morning announcements, it says, the first rule of success, you ask the question, and all the kids are supposed to say, you show up. Not as cute as pants.
It was something. It's something.
Yeah.
It's something.
I got a note on Principal Appreciation Day last year to Miss Pants. So.
So for many people here, our primary question is, how can we help? If children's reading depends on reading at home, or some come from homes with little or limited reading, how can we in some way supplement the home-based reading? And what about summertime loss of progress and maintaining for next school year? How can we help? We'll come back next month. You said? Okay.
Year-round school.
The neighborhood that's stocked by people in the neighborhood whose kids. Those boxes in the neighborhoods, because the kids want the books, they just don't have access. Yeah.
And before we go home for the summer, we always, at Carver, we provide them with, it's one of those summer workbooks that's grade level specific. So those come home. And every kid goes home with one of them, pre-K all the way through fifth grade. We even get our fifth graders one as they head out the door. So they get one of those workbooks. It's about that thick, so it's heavy, but it gives them things to do over the summer. So that's one of the pieces that we build into our Title I funding to help with that summer slump that we see sometimes. We send them home with books in the summertime. I know Judy Center in pre-K, they've been able to supplement as well for our younger kids. Every year since I've been at Carver, at least, they've gone home with a backpack that's stuffed with resources. And it's got books, it's got crayons, it's got activity books. So those are the things that we can do for our kids. We can send them home with things and pray that they're used. And it sounds like, you know, as Mrs. Paul said, with those little libraries, with the books going at all times, it sounds like that's what people want.
Last week of school, we always have an event, Title I event of Soar in the Summer. And it's a dinner for everybody. And it's also getting all of your materials that you need to continue to soar while you're in summer. So there's the book bags that we get from Title I, there are take-home books, there's the workbooks, there's games, there's all the materials because you have crayons and pencils and all of that stuff. So if you want to help with that, we'd love to have you there.
I think that there are many people in the community who almost have to talk to children, they provide them books, and then the children grow up and you can't keep all of the books. And that's what law is to the schools. You know, if you set up a notice or something, because when you have my daughter, I thought, what do I do with the books? And I thought the same thing. But I mean, if I would know, okay, Carter can use them or Lexington Park, and I think there are many people that don't want to throw away books, can't keep them all, and would like to donate them once the children have outgrown them.
I can't speak for the other schools, but we will always take donations for books, and we make sure those get distributed to students.
Okay.
We have a whole little area in our media center that's a free book area. And as the kids line up to leave, they're encouraged to browse and take books and so you take them.
So Mia, before you say thank you, I just want to mind, but I do want to ask, about Donna, because we've worked with her, with my sorority and course of work at Lexington Park Bank. But what I'm hearing for the first time, and I've been sort of out of the loop just recently, but when I heard that you're not going to be principal, that's very hard. Now, let's say, honestly, because you two, in working with you as closely as we have, you've been amazing. You epitomize, in my experience, what an administrator, how they act and how they love. And when you talk about pouring out love, it is a relationship. It's a personal relationship that we have to develop, and it's the academics promoting forward. So now I need to know who's your replacement. And no, this is very serious because it is critical in these schools, especially. It is who is your replacement and how was the fit made? Because you need to be fitted to the population that you're talking about. So I'm very serious about that. That's my question.
Oh, yeah. So it has been advertised, I suppose, we've done interviews. I don't have a name to announce right now, but I can tell you that there was quite a gathering of very, very talented people, and we always promote from within, right? So the very first thing is we don't look to the outside and say, here's some whiz bang from wherever. We promote from within. It's written into our negotiated agreement that we always go through. So I can guarantee that whoever replaces Principal Thorstensen will be somebody who is well known to all of us, and will be coming in with a track record of leadership that mirrors Ms. Thorstensen. And really, just understand, I'm bringing her to central office because she's exceptional. And it's a brilliant light here. And if I bring that light up even higher, so much so other people will fall under that beautiful. And, you know, and besides that, she's just delightful to be with. And she'll be working. She's not leaving. So she's not retiring. She is staying. And I will guarantee, you don't know this yet, who's going to mentor the new principal? The previous. Okay. And I like that's, I mean, you didn't know that. You're going to want to anyway. You're so invested. There's no way you're not going to be like, so what's going on down there? You're, you know, your accountability and reporting, so you're going to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I'll have my eyes on all of them.
Right. Right. So it's a very large thing. We're also letting Marshall Ted is getting a new principal, and Captain Walter Francis is getting a new, Duke is getting a new principal, and Park Hall Elementary School is getting a new principal. And Chopticon High School is getting a new principal, because people have gotten to the point where they're well, some are retiring, and then some must go fill very large shoes. So, you know, yeah. So I mean, it's going to be it's going to be quite a year next year for a whole host of reasons, but certainly it's going to be a great opportunity for people to find their way in new spaces. But the people who come before, they're not stepping away. And even though Ms. Bachner thinks she's retiring and drifting away, you'll find that most people, when they retire, we keep them tethered in some small fashion throughout, coming back and really consulting and really, if no other reason, just to drop in and make us all realize that we've made the wrong choice of staying.
And it sounds like a lot of principals that I think Dr. Smith hasn't said, like he's, you know, he is losing me, but he has lost Dr. Montgomery in December.
Right.
Dr. Mars is retiring. Dr. Hall is
retiring. Cheryl Long is retiring.
And I am retiring.
And
so that is why.
Well, and we started the year tragically with Dr. Jaffers passing away. So basically the entire upper, I mean, everybody is gone.
So Dr.
We just said all the parents were leaving, like
The kids
what's
are
gonna
not
happen with the kids?
But these are some talented kids.
Yeah.
These are exactly who you want to see rise to the next level of leadership. So it's
Wow, so lots of changes are coming
it's going to be
next year too.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do a slight brag that Dr. Montgomery has joined the mediation center as a mediator, so I'm excited to have her now that she's retired. But
oh boy.
she's amazing. And so what I'm also hearing is this is a great opportunity to join the education committee, because we got a whole new school people to meet. And we're going to need your help and your support. So when you signed in today, if you didn't say, I want to be a part of this committee, come back and write it down. And even more so, if you want to be a part of leadership, if you need some leaders, check that box. Yes, I'm ready to be a leader. And join us.
Yes, it's nice. Thank you for the education committee, but the executive committee.
That's what I mean by the leaders.
And also, be a member. We want you to join the NAACP. Please join. Take part, right? Take part in what we are doing. You know, we always hear, well, what are they doing? But we have our education committee. Ms. Patrice Campbell, please stand up. She does building bridges. Last summer, we worked with the strategic committee, and we mentored, and we did a workbook, phonics workbook. Programmed a reader with the kids. They were there every day. I had to put on my teacher's hat real hard. and so Patrice, building bridges, anything you want to say about building bridges?
I would like to say, I know everything you guys heard was a lot, and I'm not an educator, but I see it every day. So I clap my hands to you guys, because it's a lot, and I'm only looking 4 hours a day. But at Building Bridges, we help them. We fill in these gaps that they were mentioning and you guys were mentioning 5 days a week. And so for everyone who's helped out and who's worked with us, I want to say thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Nicola Williams. Nicole, stand up. Nicole is a volunteer with us. She is an author, but she was a teacher in Calvin County, St. Mary's County, lost out. That's another story. just go pray to the gods. But Nicola, just a few words about what your projects that you have, and we are partners with Nicola.
So when children see themselves in the pages of a book, they can see themselves in the world. And I was a teacher for 31 years, yes, in Calvert County. I have been a long-term substitute for the last 3 years because I just can't get enough of being with children. And
Amen.
My husband and I
It don't happen anymore.
Oh, no. We are backyard beekeepers. We are chicken parents.
Good. Nobody.
And I am a children's book author, and I retired so that I could start to pursue that career a little bit more. And so for 5 years, I have been working on I saw my cousin, Aunt Janice, at Easter, and I said, oh, I'll be right back. And I ran back to the car and I brought her my book. And I said, the shipment is coming. It should be in port in April 27th. I said, I'm working on something that I want to get this book in the hands of second graders at all 3 community schools in the 2025-26 school year.
Wow.
And so I showed her my book, which is all about beekeeping. It's about my family story. Bugsy is our grandson. His real name is Sage, and he goes to Duke Elementary. He's in pre-K. His mother and I and my husband, we read every night to him. When I wrote this, he was 4 months old. And he is now 5 and can read it himself. So when I write children's books, I write them with teachers in mind. And so they are structured in a way that will have benefits for the teacher. It has pull out pages, fold out pages. Thank you, sir. But it has fold out pages that share vocabulary and things. They have been lexiled. I have written lessons to go with them that are standards based. And so my hope is to work with some community partners. My initiative, my working title right now is Line Up for Books. Line up like the barbershop line up. And I want to partner with local beauty and barbershops where they will, their clientele will raise the $350 that will put a hardcover, dust jacketed, lexiled to 3rd grade. But I do want to do 2nd grade, by the way. But I want to have the barbershop adopt a class. And so once the class gets adopted, then that whole class is going to get a book. They're going to get stickers. The teacher's going to get activities. The teacher will get a book. The school library will get a book. And they get me. I come in, do an author visit. We will, they've already been tied to ELA standards, science standards, your next generation science for 2nd grade. That's where I want to target. And so over the summer, I'm getting it together. I'm working on my logo. I have a song. But I don't have a producer. I do not know how to do any of that. So I'm excited about this. I know this is my next step. I've done some author visits with Patrice. I worked with my Aunt Janice with building bridges, doing those phonics lessons last summer. And that was a lot of fun. And I missed the opportunity to be a part of St. Mary's County Public Schools as a teacher, but I am a product of the school. My children are a product of the school. Both of my parents worked in St. Mary's County Public Schools, and the tech center is named after my grandfather, James Boyd.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like now is my time to come back and work in St. Mary's County. So,
All right.
well, and I do have a packet for you guys so you can vet my materials.
She is doing a fundraiser to support this program, so you'll hear more about that. Mia, just one more thing, and I know it's time to go, but real quick, I shout out for all the organizations that I contacted that you came tonight. Even if I didn't contact you, please just get up and say who you are. Boundless Expectations.
I'm Lisa Lockberger, Executive Director at Boundless Expectations. We provide specialized educational services.
Okay.
Susan Whitman and Lisa Wright from Literacy Council. We work with the adults, we work with parents. So you've given us lots to think about, but lots that we can add into their curriculum.
Yeah. Amy Ford, Lexington Park Library. We're really grateful to our partners in the schools because yet again in summer we will be having lunch 5 days a week, all summer long. So we can meet some of the basic needs so the kids can go on and learn. And they can learn to read, they can come and be with us, they can do programs with us while they're there, and they get a healthy lunch while they're there. So thank you all so much for working with us to put that together.
Our family engagement coordinator is also a member of, the director, and also a member of the education committee.
And I'm looking for that parent connection also. Hopefully, one thing I will say is, a lot of times when we give books or give resources to the children, we also have to help the parents to work with them. So when you see schools are having parent and family engagement activities, a lot of times there are demonstrations, there's someone there you can talk to so that you know how to work with your children at home better. Take advantage of that.
Did I miss anyone?
So
Yes.
Don Pickett, Sarah Penrod, we're from the Education Association of St. Mary's County. So we support the educators here. We both are educators here.
Thank you.
So. Yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm Chris with the St. Mary's County Health Department, and I'm the program manager of the Health Hub right next door. NAACP does great work with our efforts, same with mediation, and the local schools. I was just at Harbor the other night for the wellness. I'll be over at Lexington Park tomorrow for your carnival. Looking forward to that. But we also do have a kind of book rack with children's books, thanks to the library. So if you are in need of books, it's in our lobby. So come on by. But thank you, everybody.
And my co-chair, Dr. Linda Robinson. Also, there's about 20 of these postcards that Marsha Greenberg was on our committee brought us. And if you're interested and concerned about the actions taken to deny our kids the robust resources and inclusive learning environments they need to grow and thrive, there's more here. Please take one. And I have a list of the county commissioners' names, and it's to be mailed to the county commissioners as soon as possible, just to show support for education. Now, it's up to you. You can take a look at it and read over it. But Marsha, you picked them up.
Yes, start online, the National Education Association, not just the women's one. So
yes. All right, thank you.
And we have Commissioner Hewitt here as well.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mike.
I was just about to say that's a good segue to make sure that we acknowledge Commissioner Hewitt, who has been a great supporter of the NAACP. When we call, he answers. He affectionately calls us those crazy NAACP ladies. No, I'm just teasing, but thank you so much for coming out and always being a support. Again, when we call, you do answer. So thank you so much. I want to. Oh, yeah.
1 year. Me and Bowers was about 8 years ago. Me and Dr. Robert Lewis he stood over there and Janice was there at the library and sure enough, we had that thing for the end of, not the end of, let's see, YMCA. And the bottom line is, it took us time.
Where's Tony?
Yeah.
He's back over there.
We got it. It's the more concrete.
That's right, that's right.
You know why? Because we do stuff. We make stuff go too far. We don't sit around and wait for somebody else. We say, hey, let's get together, let's do it. So next month, we'll come back because we're going to be talking about community and hub building. We're going to release our strategic plan to involve all of you because we can't do it alone. We need your energy. We need your attention. And I want you back. I want to thank you, ladies, and Dr. Smith for coming out to provide such great information and answer the questions. If your question did not get to be asked tonight, my apologies, but please email us your questions and we will get them to our lovely panel. If you want to keep this conversation going because you're like, yes, this is what's on my heart, education, show up next month. May 12th here at the Church of the Ascension for the Education Committee, where it's going to be a continuation of this conversation and next steps.
And Mia, please thank Mike, Southern Maryland News. Here.
Thank Mike, Southern Maryland News, for coming out and capturing these very important voices tonight.
And everybody go to the Facebook page and share it on your page, share it on your personal page, because all this information can go out to more people, especially for the people that didn't make the meeting. So, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking up loud enough. Go to your Facebook pages and we'll come to the 7025 Facebook page and share this meeting because we streamed it live and it's available. Please share it with your friends.
Yes. Thank you all for your time and attention tonight. We'll see you next month.